I'm Jolene Wynn, and this is the Porn Addict's Wife podcast, Transformations in Life Coaching, Conversations with Monica, Part 2. Hello, my ladies. I am so excited to be bringing you the second part of Monica's conversation that I had with her. You guys, I recorded this so long ago, and just in the shuffle of all the podcast episodes, it never got shared. So I am resharing the first part of her transformation and the second part of our conversation together so that you guys can hear her beautiful story and the growth that she had and what her life looked like and the experiences that she had and the shifts that she was able to make with the tools that she learned from life coaching. So I am so excited to bring you all of Monica's story, bringing it complete and full circle. And I'm just so grateful to her and for the little part that I was able to have in her life and how wonderful she is and how much she means to me. And I'm just so grateful that she was willing to come on and share her story with you. And I hope that all of you guys find something inspiring in her story, something that you can take from her story and relate to yourself. And I just hope you guys enjoy Monica as much as I did. So here you go. Here's the rest of Monica's story.
Well, I think I had said something along the lines of I had no idea if my husband was still viewing. But and I was going to talk about what I had chosen to believe about that.
Excellent.
I think that's what I was talking about.
Well, let's talk about it now. That sounds
Okay.
great.
Okay. I need to figure out how to prop up my phone real quick. Sorry.
You're totally fine.
Trying to get comfy.
You're
Okay.
totally good. Okay. Let's start with that. Let's start with what you want to talk about.
So I, at the present time, I don't even know if my husband is viewing porn anymore, but I have chosen to believe a couple of things about it. First of all, I realized how my want of control just caused tension in the marriage. And it made him feel worse about himself. When I would try and check in and think that I was quote unquote helping him, it was actually making things worse and bringing up shame again and again and again. And even if like I saw, because at a certain point I was checking his computer every day, if I saw a video that he had watched, because he stopped viewing things on Pornhub, but he would start watching like stuff on YouTube and bikini models and all this stuff. And it was just like, to me, it was just, I just didn't understand why he needed to view any of that. And, but every time I bring that up, it would just bury him in shame again. And we'd end up going back a couple paces in our growth, then we'd revert instead of moving forward. And so I realized that I was not helping the situation. I also realized it was not bringing me any peace whatsoever to be that controlling of him, because really we have no control over each other. And, I mean, it is kind of a remarkable supernatural pact that we enter into in marriage when we take it seriously, that we expect the other person to be faithful and enter into it with the same ideas that we have. And I mean, it's sometimes you find out after the fact you don't have the same ideas, even though you might have talked about it. And so I mean, just realizing how it brought me no peace, I had no control. And listening to your conversations with Rob, it always just struck me like the beautiful gift you gave him by giving him the space to grow. And yeah, I'm sure that was hard, and I know it's hard, but at the same time, like that was something that I was holding back from Jake, of coming into his own identity, as making the choice in his life, not being coerced, not being forced to, but making the choice in his own life to let go and move on from this stuff. I also, one of the last episodes you had done on your podcast with Rob, you talked about how someone who's viewing porn oftentimes has goes to it because it's a way of, they don't know how to process their emotions. So it's a way to deal with
Right.
being able to process their emotion.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, I always knew that Jake would view it when he was really stressed, when he was bored, when he was lonely, and all these different things. And so he was just like, oh, okay.
Mhm.
Well, instead of me getting on him about being unproductive and all this stuff, which would just drive him right back to it, like
Mhm.
I started paying attention more to how I was contributing to those emotions that were already there.
Mhm.
Not that I could control that. I wasn't trying to manipulate or control how he would process his emotions, but I just realized like I was making them worse in
Right.
some ways. And so it was just like, this is an area I can help him, that I do have control over
Mhm.
myself. And, but I think it was just more powerful to realize like, this is, as a Christian, we believe in that life of conversion
Mhm.
and constant conversion. And so it was just like, I know how conversion has impacted me in my life, where I learned to love myself on a deeper level. I learned to be humble. I learned to love God on such a deeper level, because I realized he loves me to every fiber of my being with all my mistakes. And it's just like, if I continue in this way, I'm going to really be keeping that from Jake in a lot of ways. I wouldn't totally, but it would slow things down. And so for me, that was very powerful. And so I've just decided that, you know, the signs of when your husband's viewing porn. And so for me, I do set up some boundaries. More just that I make sure that I make time for my emotional processing.
Mhm.
I make sure I exercise. I make sure that I eat well.
Mhm.
All those things do really play a key role in how I feel as a person. And I make sure that I have some good quality time with my Heavenly Father in prayer.
Mhm.
And those are the things that I know that I need. And then having good friendships around you, that they don't even have to know about your situation, but to be able to go to a person that brings life to you
Mhm.
is so important. And I I don't know. I don't feel bad if I've realized Jake's viewing and he's acting in a way that I feel disrespected. I let him know. I don't feel bad about that. I don't just because he's viewing porn doesn't mean that I have to be okay with it. The fact that I'm stepping back and I'm letting him go on that journey himself is one thing, but he doesn't have to drag me into it.
Mhm.
And so I I guess you could say I get kind of tough on him at times, where it's just like, no, you're not going to treat me that way. I know what you're doing, but that's your journey, but you're not going to treat me this way.
Mhm.
And so that might mean we might be in the middle of having sex, and it's just like, okay, no, magic is gone. Healing is done.
Uh-huh.
You're not going to do this to me.
Mhm.
This is not what this moment is. And I'm
Right.
sorry. You're using me. I don't want to be used.
Mhm.
I'm
Yes.
something you love. And I mean, even just language use, it's just like, no,
Sure.
no,
Yeah.
all those different things. And I hope to a certain extent that he always ends up just full of shame.
Mhm.
And it's just like, okay, but we don't have to stay here. You're
Uh-huh.
so much, you're so much more than this. And so in a sense, I feel like because I'm drawing these boundaries, it shows him like how worthy he is of
Mhm.
real love, of real intimacy. And I mean, no, I'm not perfect. I still lose my temper. And I get very down about it, but I know what I need to do in order to handle
Mhm.
it
Yeah.
appropriately. And it's very hard having an infant in the house because, as you know, kids just feel every vibe coming off of their parents and react to that. And so it's like, if I'm really struggling, it is just, I mean, yes, I only have one child in the house, but it's very hard to handle the stress of it sometimes and not have it be just bouncing off of every wall in the house. And so it's good in a sense to have that, so that I learn to keep on top of processing my emotions and everything. But it's the tools that you've given me, Jolene, have helped so incredibly. It doesn't make everything easier because it depends on what you choose to believe. Like, I choose to believe porn is wrong, that's an integrity issue, and that it doesn't belong in a marriage. But I've also decided to stay with my husband, to love him, to give him the space to go on this journey and to sacrifice for him.
Yes.
So
Okay.
he,
I'm gonna pause you because that is the one thing that so many women, so many of my clients really struggle with. So many of my podcast listeners really struggle with that cognitive dissonance, with the ability to believe some two conflicting thoughts, right? One is the belief that porn is wrong, but then to also know that you can still choose to stay in a marriage if your husband is still watching porn. I struggle with that so much. But even just being willing to accept that it's totally okay, you can have both of those things. Usually women think that if they accept that, if they stay married, that means they're okay with it. And that's not what that means.
no, and I think one of the reasons why, and I mean, this is all something that it's, you, even just talking about it, you realize, oh yeah, there are different areas that I still haven't had the guts to go there and deal with, but it's working its way down the layers of all these emotions. Cause these emotions, yeah, you deal with them, but they do come in layers. Not that you're layering emotions like you've talked about, but different experiences will come to mind and you have to deal with that emotion.
Yes.
And then, another aspect will come
Yes.
up. And, but I find that when I remember my humanity and how, I mean, Jake has to deal with me. I have faults too, and no, they're not addictive faults like porn. You could say I have an addiction to being angry. That's my way of controlling things and feeling like I'm in control, but does it help anything? No. And so I mean, when I guess when I get mad about things, it's just like, okay, I feel like I'm able to give him a little more grace because of how much he's given me, even though they're very different areas. And I also try and hope that he gives me as much grace as I'm trying to give him. And so just to remember your own humanity, I think helps with that, because I'm not perfect.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that I say all the time about this kind of work is that it takes a lot of humility, and either you're going to come, you need an attitude of humility in order to even begin, but you're going to be humbled a lot as you go through it. And I think that's part of it, is even just recognizing that it's so tempting to, because we believe that porn is wrong, right? It's so tempting to put ourselves in a prideful spot of us being right. But all that does is keep us the victim, right? The less humility we have, the more of a victim we are. The more you humble yourself, the more you're able to come with compassion to see what it is that you're bringing to the table, which is everything that I do, right? Is all about what we're doing. It's not about him at all. And about how you're approaching it and how you can work through that. And really, humility is just the key to all of it. It's the key to moving forward. Absolutely.
Yeah. It was interesting. I had an interesting experience this summer. My husband's a farmer, and he gets very stressed out with everything because you have no control over so much in farming. You have no control over the weather, which is so important. You need rain at certain times. You need dry heat, real heavy heat at different times for different crops. And, I was really, behind all of this is the impression that I got. So he was really crabby during this entire time. And it was during a moment, I had stopped coaching with Jolene, and it was during a time where I was still just like really struggling with the whole idea that, oh, he's probably watching porn right now.
Mhm.
And I come to some consolation in just giving him the benefit of the doubt that he was watching porn. It was almost better just to think that he was watching porn
Mm.
than to not be sure.
Mhm.
But he was really crabby, and he was not very pleasant to be around. And so I hadn't been down to visit my family in St. Louis for over a year. And so I was just like, you know what? I have my in-laws are going to be going halfway to meet my sister-in-law to bring the kids up to the farm. So I'm going to go down with them, and then I can drive with Catherine the rest of the way. And I'm going to stay full 10 days down in St. Louis. And I'm not going to feel bones about it, because you're being such a jerk to me right now. And this is not fun. And I don't have to be here. I'm not helping with the farm. And, you can just deal with your own crap right now. And I'll enjoy myself this summer a little bit.
Mhm.
And no one had seen my son yet. And so we ended up going down, and we had a horrible argument the night before I left. And so we left on really bad terms. Well, I was down there for the visit. It was a wonderful visit. And Jake would FaceTime me every day. And it was very evident that he missed my son more than he missed me. And
Well, your son is really cute.
he is
Like,
very
let's
cute.
give him that.
Well, and I mean, who doesn't love a baby? You get
I
into
know,
the
right? I mean,
love.
he's only a couple
from a
months old.
baby.
Like, he's adorable.
Oh, he's the best. And so he's a very happy baby too. And so Jake he would FaceTime every day. And it was a good way to connect every day. Well, we ended up, it happened during our anniversary time and during the anniversary of the 1 year of me knowing that he had been viewing porn. And so I was just like, yeah, it doesn't bother me. I'm not there for that. And it honestly doesn't bother me. I'm not there for the anniversary, because he's farming, I wouldn't be able to do anything anyway. But he told me that he missed us so much that he wrote me an anniversary card and sent it down to St. Louis. Well, it didn't get there by the time that I was there and had come back. So my mom ended up forwarding it to me back to North Dakota. And Jake was just so happy when we came home. It was very sweet. And he was much nicer when we got home. But I was still pretty hurt. And I mean, I wasn't mean, but I just was like, yeah, this is only going to last so long and whatever. But I ended up getting his anniversary card. And, it's amazing how we always talk about how our feelings are our own and how we have certain thoughts based off of those feelings. And I actually have the card right here. This totally changed how I felt towards my husband. My dearest Monica, happy anniversary, my love. We've packed a lot of living into 2 years. I am missing you and Justin so much it hurts. And I can't wait to hug the both of you again. I burst into tears at that point. He had not expressed any kind of sentiment towards me for a while, just because of how stressed he was. And, it just, to me, all of a sudden, I felt so loved. Now, he could have been really upset when he had written this card or whatever. Obviously, to me, it sounds like he really was missing us. And so every time I see him, then it was just like, oh, he missed us so much. And I was just like on this cloud of feeling loved for like the next month. It was crazy. And then we had a stupid little argument one day, and it hit me like I had been able to overlook so many things for the rest of that month solely because I had received this one word from him expressing how much he missed me and loved me. And, it's amazing how when you have those things you can hold on to, or even that just give you a certain emotion that gives you security, you can choose to hold on to that if it serves you.
Yes.
And that is something that I've realized, like, it gave me so much power in my life, because it was just like, okay, in these moments when I forget, when Jake and I have an argument, or when I feel slighted by him or overlooked or whatever it is, like I can look at this card and be, no, we have had deep moments of love that have not been physical, and that have brought us back to the root of why we got married, and that are powerful. And I can hold on to that, and it's not immature.
Right.
And it brings life to the relationship rather than just making things easy for a time. It I don't know. I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. I think there are so many of us, and so many of my clients, so many women who listen to the podcast worry that if they choose to think something positive, that they're just being naive, or they're just setting themselves up for more failure. And they feel like our brains think it's super important to remember our pain. And so because then it thinks it won't happen again. If I remember how much I'm hurt, if I remember how much he's been a jerk, then I won't get as hurt if it happens again. But it doesn't actually work that way. It doesn't prevent us from feeling hurt again. All it does is prevent us from feeling joy and compassion and connection and security right now. So
sometimes it makes that hurt even worse.
Yes, it does. You're like, oh my, sometimes having that, like if you're expecting to be hurt, having that, see, I knew it was going to happen anyway, is like even more painful than if you had let that go and chosen to feel secure and loved. I mean, all you're doing is denying yourself the opportunity to feel secure and loved right now. That's it.
Well, and I think it's important to also just remember what it was that attracted you to the person in the first place. When you first got married, like before you knew all this about your spouse, like, I mean, yeah, looking back, it's like, oh yeah, this should have given me some clues, but it's like, I wasn't seeing that because no, I didn't know him, but also like I was in love with his personality and his charms and all these different things. And that's still there.
Yes. So much. Usually what happens when the pornography addiction comes to light, it's so tempting to make that who he is. And we forget everything else.
Yeah.
And because our brain wants to always think about it. Again, our brain thinks it's super important for this to always be our focus, right? So we don't get hurt again, so we don't die. And it just thinks that that's who he is. And that's what we always need to remember. And we forget that there's so much more to him. Like his pornography addiction is not who he is. He is who he is. And this is something that he does that I don't agree with, that I don't think is right, that I don't want him to do. But it's not him. And we forget that so often.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Amen.
All right. So do you have any last thoughts or parting words of wisdom or advice or anything for the women on the podcast?
Don't be afraid to be uncomfortable. Because you'll find most of your growth there. And then it actually won't be as uncomfortable after a while. And Jolene is a very safe place and a very comforting place to come to when whatever you're dealing with, whether it is because one thing I loved about coaching with Jolene is how, yes, you could talk about everything with the pornography addiction with your husband, but you could bring on other aspects of your life and you could deal with it right there. And I mean, this coaching covers everything. And so, but Jolene is a very safe and loving place to come to. And don't forget to continue having a life outside of all of this.
Yes. So good.
Don't let this be your life because it's not. It's just a season. And seasons do pass. And we learn so much from these seasons.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much, Monica, for talking to all of our listeners.
I'm so happy I was able to do this for everybody. I hope I haven't ranted and raved too much, but
not at all. Not at all.
This has been great.
I love it.